Okay, there we are. Let's see, did we catch up yet? Did we catch up yet? Okay. Did we catch up yet? Oh, come on, what's the loop? Okay, everybody, how's everybody doing? I'm just gonna invite some people. See how it goes. Okay, everybody, how's everybody doing? I'm just gonna invite some people. See how it goes. Okay, everybody, how's everybody doing? I'm just gonna. What is that looping? Are you okay? Where's this looping coming from? How it goes. Okay, everybody, how's everybody doing? I'm just. Okay? Where's this looping coming from? How it goes. What's that? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Because it's telling me that my speaker ain't working.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. So good afternoon, everyone. I'll be switching back and forth from these screens so I can see the Facebook feed. Okay. Hey, Kaylona. Hey, Tanisha. Hey, Nat. So today we welcome you back to the third part of our series of stress, anxiety, depression, fitness in a COVID-19 environment. Okay. And so we're just going to get started. Again, I'm going to introduce my panel. We have Renetta Hines, We have Cherie Barnes, we have Carrie Snow, and we have our featured speaker today, Dr. Tiffany Michelle. So we are going to um, have a great discussion. So today our focus is on the psychology behind coping with COVID-19. And I think that everybody is having a psychological moment in these times. We are all trying to keep our heads screwed on straight because this has been a tremendous amount of pressure and stress that has been placed on each and every one of us, whether you are an essential worker or whether now you have um, been told that you have to stay home and work from home. It has created a different environment in your home space. And now it's like because you're home 24/7, now you have to find a place or a room or a space in your home where now you can escape, that where it's your escape place to go. Whereas prior to this, your home was your escape place to go, period. And now that we don't have that, it's just creating, I think, an insurmountable amount of stress and anxiety on people as they're trying to get through this with their heads. I think it's just making us all feel a little goofy. You now you see a little bump on your face and you're like, oh Jesus, is this part of the COVID that they didn't know? One too many hairs in the brush. You like, Lord, is this it too? Like, and we're just even not aware of the time and the seasons that we're in. Like, this is the end of natural flu season, the beginning of allergy season. So people are congested, they're coughing, they have mucus, they're sneezing, their eyes are running. Sometimes those sinuses, they give you headaches, you got pressure. Sometimes you just don't feel good in your body, but that it's all related to sinuses. But because some of those symptoms also mimic COVID, then you be like, Lord, okay, Jesus, help me get off the ledge. I'm finna jump. I don't have a parachute. You calling people, you jumping up, you pacing, you running through the house, you crying, you asking the Lord, help me, Jesus. I don't want to have COVID, God. Who was around? You banning people even the more. And it has just been crazy, to say the least. Um, and um, it's just you almost don't have words just to describe it. I mean, it's like we're seeing we were all hoping to get out of this winter, and everybody was looking forward to summer, and to see that all we're looking forward is to another winter. It's like, what? Like, the whole summer is gone. They're canceling all the major fests things that we use to denote the summer months, to know that we're in summer. They're the house picnic, the Silver Light Room, the Chicago Taste, the Cincinnati Musical Festival, the I think the West Side Festival that we have over here. Then I think it's Mambi on the Beach, and all these festivals that we have to just kind of tell us where we are in the summer, and just having a good time. We don't even have those things to look forward to. So it's like, even when they open up the nation, you know where do we go from there? Like, we still just gonna be now just sitting on our front porch swinging our feet, like, I don't know. um but I just wanted to start off with that. We have an amazing discussion plans for you. We're going to try to stay as close to our hour time frame as possible today, because we want everybody to enjoy, and we don't want to over inundate you with too much information, which I think we kind of did last week. And that's just because I can talk. So we have a few topics that we're going to go over today. And so I'm just going to give you our little outline. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tiff so she can start us off and lead us into this amazing discussion. We encourage you guys to put your questions and your comments in this feed, and we will get to them. Okay, so we're going to start off with our pre COVID concerns. We're going to look at depression, anxiety, and other mental challenges. We're going to move to the COVID concerns that we have that compound the pre-COVID concerns. We're going to look at symptoms, look at the biology, the physiological aspects. We're going to look at the before and after aspects and special populations. And then we're going to look into treatments and coping aspects. And we're just going to provide strategies and tips from you from both the psychological aspects and from the physical fitness aspects. So I am turning it over into the very capable hands of Dr. Tiffany. Dr. Tiff?
Thank you again, Joy, for inviting me to be on this panel. It is an extremely amazing honor to be able to just talk with you and the rest of the ladies on the panel. And if you've been here, for the last couple of weeks, you know that we all do pretty much the same thing. And at the core, that's helping people, but from maybe a different paradigm or a different perspective. So today, as the psychologist on the panel, what I am going to focus on is, we call it like the psychology behind the response to this pandemic that we're experiencing. So at the core, some people are like, well, what's the difference between the psychologist and the social worker and the counselor and things like that? Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me before I keep talking, because I'm not on Facebook right now, so I can't see what everybody else is seeing. But like I was saying, although there are very different disciplines at the core, we're helping people. So today, my focus is the psychological response. And when we think of that, what I'm talking about and what I'll focus on is the mind and the behavior, the way that we think about this whole thing. Because one of the theories in psychology is people respond to stressful events by the way that they appraise or the way that they think about the event, right? So where some people may have approached this event with what appeared to be ease, like, oh, okay, I can just follow the rules and everything is straight. Another person who may experience some challenges like anxiety or depressive thoughts may approach it with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, and even some negative distortion. So we're going to talk about that. So the thing about this pandemic is we all were existing before we found out about this virus, right? We were all walking around doing our thing, going to work, not going to work, going to school, being parents, being husband, wives, cousins, family. And then boom, we hear that all of a sudden we have to embrace things like sheltering in place and social distancing and all of those things. And while many of us have been just going about our daily lives, there's also this certain portion of the population that was going through life, but was also experiencing anxiety and depression. And so I want to touch on those people before I touch on everybody else, because things may be a little different for them. And while everybody is experiencing a lot of stress, we have that population who dealt with depressive thoughts, negative beliefs about themselves, about the world and the future, that have kind of felt like fire was just lit up in their world. And so what we have happening is that those people who were working, some of them had the blessing of being able to work in treatment with therapists or psychotropic medication, counseling, and all these things that were helping them, and even some distractors like work and parenting and things like that. The pandemic has sent them into a tailspin. Some people are more anxious. They already were dealing with the level of anxiety, and now we drop something on them and say, hey, by the way, we don't know when this is going to end. By the way, we don't know if your family member is going to make it through or not. By the way, we don't really know how exactly you may contract this virus. One minute we say, oh, you don't have to wear a mask, and a couple of weeks later, you do need to wear a mask. In fact, if you don't wear a mask in some parts of the country, they're looking to fine you. So what do those people do who already are at the height of anxiety and depression? What do we do with those populations? And later in our conversation, we're going to talk about treatment, but I just wanted to highlight that population that was already experiencing those things and what it looks like for them. If we move on to just the other part of the population, and I can't even say us because for me, I don't have depression or anxiety, but I do have features of anxiety. I actually get anxious with public speaking. I get anxious with being in places where there's just too many people. So now when you introduce a pandemic and a virus that I'll say, for lack of better words, that's uncontrollable, my anxiety has skyrocketed. Just I go to the grocery store at 6 a.m. because I really want to practice social distancing and etc. So I want to say that that part of the population and some of us who are being introduced to this new wave of anxiety, we are finding different ways to cope. So there are times that some people who don't have the benefit to be treated with um, therapy or counseling, where they're working on how they view the world, how they think about their world, and trying to get help to make sense of why they feel sad more often than not, or why they feel anxious more often than not. Sometimes some of those people don't get to go to a therapist, but they get to go to the bar. They get to take it out on their family members. They get to, engage in drugs or unhealthy behaviors. So introducing the pandemic is why you kind of see the rise in domestic violence and, you know, uh, couples. We've been getting tons of calls for couples counseling because people are forced to not have that outlet, whether it be healthy or not, you know, to deal with those feelings of, you know, unhealthy thoughts or depressive thoughts or anxious thoughts, etc. So I just will stop here. I don't want to take up too much before I go on, but are there any questions or panel, did you guys have anything you wanted to add to that before we go into, what's really going on currently right now?
I think I'm really glad that you're highlighting, Tiffany, that it affects us all, pre-existing mental health concerns or not. Like it's equally oppressive, for lack of a better way to put it. It challenges each one of us to tap into those things. So I think it's really good to think about all of that.
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought up the anxiety because as adults, we can figure out how to deal with anxiety, but sometimes it's a challenge for kids to figure out how to work with them and deal with anxiety issues, even for children. And so just bringing up the fact that as adults, we go through anxiety, but our children or children in our lives may have a greater time trying to figure out how to work through their own issues. So
Exactly.
I,
Exactly.
I'm a person who deals with depression and anxiety regularly outside of COVID-19. So, of course, I really appreciate you talking with everyone about people with pre-existing conditions and what it's like. Um, you light the fire up under something, it kind of turns up. So I watch a lot of people post about introverts and extroverts and how they're dealing with it. I don't think it's as simple as some people are extroverted and they're going nuts, and introverted people are really happy. I find I've seen an increase in my anxiety, but a lot of my depression because I just sleep a lot now, a lot because I can't. I don't have those outlets outside of walking my dog.
Mhm.
So as a helper who also occasionally receives, well, that's not exactly how I want it. I'm extremely well educated about the mechanisms behind why I can get depressed. I think most people aren't. Most people don't really understand depression. You'll have people who tell you they've been down for a couple of days and tell you that they're depressed, and that's not really what depression is. So I think what we're doing, especially what you're talking on today, Tiffany, is so important that we just take heed and whatever things that we can glean from this conversation and put to use in our everyday lives will really be a blessing. Because some people aren't as transparent and they don't necessarily. Mental illness in our communities is as bad as AIDS in the 80s. Nobody wants it and nobody wants to be anywhere near you. Um, so I think like what's going on here is that we can normalize certain behaviors, and having you on to speak about maybe what the reason is behind some of these behaviors are, and some tools that we could use to distract from some negative thought. I think that would be a beautiful thing. So I'm equipped with tons of information, but I'm really looking forward to hearing what Dr. Bellamy has to say. Um, that's it for me. I'm gonna.
But thank you, Carrie, because what you did was just ushered us right into the next area of discussion. And really is, I think that you all deserve, and I say you all, I mean everybody who's watching in the world kind of deserves to understand, what are the symptoms and what does it really look like for someone to have depression or anxiety, but especially right now. So I have a short story where I want to talk about a client that I have that, had pre-existing anxiety. She is, without too much information, a lot of students, I see high school students, and a lot of high school students are struggling with, our social distancing efforts and, the end of the school year. But I do have a client who suffers from anxiety, and I hate to use the word suffer because I think that sometimes we're just all wired differently, so that she experiences anxiety. But for her, the the part of the depressive cycle is relieved. So get this, because she doesn't have to go to school and have the pressures of meeting deadlines and being in the hallways with a lot of people, her anxiety has minimized. Her depression has minimized. That's one client. However, I heard a story from another colleague who has a client who didn't have any of these issues prior to now, but her anxiety was up the roof. And when we say anxiety, we're talking about sometimes in the physical form, it could be heart racing, feelings in the stomach, sweating, things like that. But she experienced heightened anxiety because she has to get on a Zoom call every day without her weave, without looking the way that she is used to looking every day in school. And while we may minimize some of these things, these are the things that our young people are dealing with, and even some of us adults. I mean, I'm not afraid to say that before I do my sessions, I get made up, as you see now. This is not how I chill in the house, but we do that because, we do want to protect the way that we look or the way that we present. But if you talk to maybe a 15-year-old who doesn't have control over her look, who has not been able to go to the salon in weeks because we've been asked to shelter in, her anxiety is just as real as the next person. So let's talk about what depression and anxiety is. So when we talk about depressive symptoms, you know, it's not just being sad. And I know that people, when they're sad and then when they get down, especially with grief, and we got the grief expert on, so she's going to talk about that later. But these are reasons to have these sad feelings. But when we talk about symptoms of depression, we are talking about a loss of like just the pleasure of life. The feeling of wanting to engage in things that you once loved to do. And sometimes you don't know why. Sometimes you just can't explain why you don't want to talk to your friends through Zoom, even though you were the life of the party at one point, why you lost that desire. Sometimes you can't explain why you have tears and why you're crying. You can't explain why you have these thoughts in your head that tell you that you're worth nothing, the world ain't worth nothing, and your future ain't gonna be nothing. Those are symptoms of depression. Notice I did not include being very sad, because sadness is a feeling. Yes, it is. It's a very valid feeling. But most of the time we can kind of pinpoint why we're sad. But many times we cannot pinpoint why we're depressed. And so when we think about anxiety, I call depression and anxiety cousins. They're cousins, they're family. So you see a lot of the same symptoms, but then there are things like panic attacks, where you experience some of those same things. Like you might not want to go out anymore, but it's because you're so afraid that you might have a panic attack, that you might experience out of the blue for what appears to be no reason, shortness of breath, feeling like you're going to pass out, stomach aches, etc. Those are things that, those are the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And I did not say every symptom. I just gave you guys a little bit. But so if we transition into this pandemic and experiencing COVID, you have a lot of people who've been introduced to these feelings and they weren't there before. We talked about people who have experienced them, but what about those people who haven't? And I'm going to open this up to the rest of the panel because many of us here are servicing people, and I would like for you guys to talk about a little bit of what you've seen because of COVID, in the different populations. What have you seen? And Joy, you could definitely always talk about the physical things that you've experienced and seen.
Well, so I have a lot to say.
Okay.
As one who has, I've dealt with depression since I was 12 years old. Not many people are privy to that, where they are now, but that's something that I have dealt with since a very, very young age in my life. And I have never had like formal treatment for it or been prescribed any medications. What I have done was, for me, my outlet was writing. So I did a lot of journaling and writing stories and poetry as I was growing up. I in my I I don't know the full genesis of my depression, but I know part of it was because for me, I wasn't the quote unquote pretty girl in school. I had very full lips. My dad really believed in embracing our African culture and heritage at a time when it was not, we were trying to get rid of that, like we talk about 1970s and 80s. And so people were trying to step into that new culture, and perms were coming and curls were coming and pressing and curling. And my dad didn't really want his daughters to have our hair indulged in that. So I had very nappy hair, and it was like extremely thick, like what everybody wants now in natural hair. I used to have as a young girl, and it was not received or embraced. So I got ridiculed a lot in school. I got talked about because I was very tall and slender. So I'm this very tall girl, very slender, kind of a square rectangle, straight up and down, very full lips, all of this nappy hair. And I was just not the people's choice, right? So there's a lot of bullying and a lot of ridicule. I did not have a lot of friends growing up. I was not included in the cool group, as you would say. And so I dealt with that a lot. And of course, your parents, they encourage you, what parents say and do, then those are not really your friends, and you have to learn to stand and be by yourself in that whole 9 yards. So I do understand those aspects. And I also deal with claustrophobia. And so claustrophobia is more than just being in tight spaces. As I've gotten older, it really has to do more with control, your ability to control things and situations around you. The tight spaces is just like an added thing. And so
anxiety, yes.
Yeah, it's that anxiety. And so for a while, I want to say like 2.5 years ago, my anxiety, well, maybe a little longer, because it got heightened from being in an abusive relationship that I was in about 8 years ago. And my anxiety went beyond the roof. It was like in the stratosphere. And to the point where I was afraid of the nighttime. Like, it's daytime now, I was afraid of the nighttime. A lot of you were not privy to this, because when you saw me, I was okay, but in front of you. But I'm saying this to say that I understand that anxiety and that panic attack, and how it has the physical manifestations of, like Tiff said, the feeling shortness of breath, or feeling sick to your stomach, or feeling like you can't breathe, or feeling like you need to get out, pacing, not wanting to sit down, constantly want to talk on the phone to somebody, or just reaching out, just not being able to sleep well. And it affected my health. So as a result of it, high blood pressure, I developed sleep apnea. I lost my love for working out. So I wasn't working out on a consistent basis. And that added to the high blood pressure and sleep apnea, because I was gaining weight all at the same time. And so, and sometimes there are triggers. So when you were talking about your clients, there are certain things that can trigger those feelings to arise again. Yes. And so even looking at it from, as me being a fitness expert, and people like, oh, you should always want to work out, or I know you always working out. It's like, no, there are moments as a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, the whole 9 yards, that I'm like, I don't want to work out today. I'm not working out today. I'm not working out. I don't feel like it. I don't want to get my hair messed up. I don't feel like sweating. Whatever the excuse is, you have that time in those moments. Most of the time, the difference is that most people can just shake that off in a day or two, and they can motivate themselves to get back to that place where they need to be. But when you're dealing with anxiety and depression, it's not that easy. The desire is deep down in your inside of you to want to do those things, especially the things that you know to do. But to that and the manifestation of doing it is like millions of light years apart.
Right.
And sometimes that just causes you to continue to go down the rabbit hole. So I really get that, and I could really expound, but I'm not. It's not me. Come on, Dr. Tiff.
And I just want to drop in for those people that have that science and biology background. There's that switch that goes on chemically in your mind, and
Mhm.
I always tell people everything psychological is biological, because if we go into the brain, and if whatever trigger that may be there, if we think about that switch that goes on in your nervous system and your central nervous system, and makes you feel like you need to protect yourself, and we can go into the neurotransmitters that you may have enough of or may not have enough of, or too much of. All of those things contribute to these two disorders and others, but we focus in on these. So if I don't have enough of and I'm just going to call them good juice, maybe endorphins, and that's because it's been some time since I've been in my biology classes, but definitely if something in my environment turns on that switch and I don't have enough of that good juice to carry me through, my body is going to say, you need to protect yourself, and I'm going to shut down. And that shutdown may look like a lot of the things that you talked about, Joy. So for those of you who know a lot about the neurotransmitters, dopamine, epinephrine, serotonin, those things, and this is why people are,
Oxytocin.
yes,
That's
yes, this is why people are prescribed medicine. And I know sometimes, I'm not a pill pusher, but we have to remember we are made up, our brain is made up of chemicals. So sometimes there is a need for medication. Not all the time. Sometimes you need a combination. But I'm going to leave that right there, because we did have a question in the comments that I wanted to get to before we go on. So someone asked, how do you know if your child is experiencing anxiety or just frustrated about not being able to participate in senior year activities? So this is going to be my response as Dr. Tiffany Bellamy, but also as Tiffany Bellamy. I don't think that labeling it is so much important. I think attending to what's going on is important. So whether or not it's anxiety or not, I think that a very thorough conversation with this senior has to take place, because part of it is a lot of disappointment. But when it becomes anxiety, and it very well could be, you want to figure out if, what type of thoughts your senior is having. Do they believe that these senior activities define who they are? Do they think that it's wrapped into their trajectory of their future? Are they, experiencing any doubtful thoughts, hits to their self-esteem? You want to know, and that could be just out of frustration, but it could also be out of anxiety. And we're going to get to what we do about that in just a minute. But for me, I would say that what you do know is something ain't right. And so when we know that something is not right, then we want to do whatever we can to figure out what it is exactly. Maybe I need to send my child to talk to somebody. And just because they talk to somebody don't mean that they even have a disorder, but they do have a mental challenge. And what most of us do is help people with mental challenges. So, that's my short answer for right now. But we're going to continue on because we don't want to take too much of you guys' time. So thank you, Joy. Thank you for being so transparent and so honest, because honestly, these type of discussions save lives, you know. So many people think we get it all together, and that's one of our problem in our community, is that we believe in stunting and faking and not always being honest about what's going on. And so as you guys see, we keep it real on Joy's live. We gonna tell the truth, shame the devil.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
um so we were talking about these mental health challenges, and we talked about teens, but you know, the one other population that I really wanted to hit on was our elders and our baby boomers. They are struggling because
Mhm.
many are what do you call it, they don't work no more. The word is
Retired.
escaping me. Retired, yes. They go and they meet with their friends, you know, they have routines, even if it's just going to the grocery store. I'm gonna do this, and to take that independence away sometimes it's hard for them.
Mhm.
It's hard for them. They also come from a time where, and we going back into cognitive thinking, the type of way they respond to stressful events. These people have experienced a time when they could not trust what the government says. So why all of a sudden are they gonna trust them now? You know, they say, oh, you know, that's what they saying. I don't believe that. I ain't ready to do that. And so it is difficult. Sometimes those of us who are dealing with our elders or caring for our parents or grandparents and et cetera, it's difficult for us to say, can you please, you know, try to follow the shelter in place activities, try to, you know, do social distancing. Try not, I know you and Addie Mae used to play Keno every Saturday and y'all have all these people, but you can't do that. And we want to do that, but we also want to keep in mind their mental health challenges, because some of them don't have the tools that we have or understand the outlets that are available to them. You know, we're getting to the point where people are very comfortable with saying, okay, I talked to this person, or I'm seeing a counselor, and they still, a lot of them still side eyeing us like, yeah, okay. You know, but we want to be able to tune into their behavior. So what do you look for in that population? You know, sometimes you're going to have to give a little bit. You're going to have to take them on drives. You're going to have to, even if you go to the store, you can say, you got to stay in the car, but I'll go do the shopping and things. So, you know, those are some of the things you want to look out for, because some of them, you know, with removing that type of independence, will go into depressive thoughts and thinking. And we want to look out for that. So before we talk about treatments, panel, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, I think I wanted to also touch a couple of things. I know we're trying to keep this um kind of separate, but it's not separate from me.
Sure.
So when you were talking about how anxiety and depression kind of run together, the first thing that came to me was spiritually. How
Mhm.
spiritually, a lot of things that we deal with, they run in packs spiritually. And
Mhm.
so that's why, if you have followed me for any little bit of time, especially during this time, I have put God in the forefront of this whole thing, because we have to deal with things on both a natural and a spiritual level. That's the way he dealt with things in his word, and that's the way we should deal with them here. And so when we see these things and root causes, then we can also go to the word. That's another source that we have to research out where our root cause for depression and anxiety, and how are these things triggers. Because to me, in my mind, triggers are just other spirits that are running with these other spirits. And so, you know, the word tells us that first we have to bind a strong man. And
Amen.
so we have to figure out which one of these spirits are dominant, and what was the trigger, or what happened in our life that allowed it in, because this is just another mechanism of healing. when you heal your mind, you need to also heal your spirit, man or woman, and so that you can be balanced. I think that's so very important that we remain balanced in both of those aspects. And then another area that you touched on was again those physiological aspects that happens. And like you said, those chemicals, the serotonin, the acetylcholine and choline, and how they are impacting your brain with triggering those fight or flight senses that we do have. What some people call your gut, some people call your intuition, some people call them spidey sense. We look at it as discernment. Your gut feeling is telling you something is off,
Your body
and
will tell on you all the
your
time.
body will tell it, man. Because it's in tune with God. It's in tune with the spirit. It's a natural thing, right? And so, even how it affects athletes. So looking at it from a physical standpoint, where you say that, oh, he froze or she froze during the game. A lot of times it's because they're dealing with some level of anxiety that you have no clue about. And so they're not able to perform when performance is necessary at that point. Some people, we have unknowingly, not having all the facts, we call them practice performers, right? They go to practice and kill a game and be running everybody down. But when it comes to a track meet or a basketball game or a hockey match or a volleyball match, they can't do nothing. They can't even hit the ball. They can't dribble the ball. They can't run for 10 seconds to save their life. They dropping the baton. They forget their steps. I mean, and all of those, it's anxiety. It's levels of anxiety that can paralyze you. You've heard the saying of being paralyzed with fear. Well, I've had that happen to me.
Right.
I have, where like somebody was playing a joke on me, and what they did was they scared me so badly that all I could do was sit in the chair and scream. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up and fight. I couldn't do anything. So then it also takes you back to when you see people on the movies and you be like, you're so stupid. Why you just standing there looking? And it's because you are literally paralyzed with fear. That's a real thing. And if you don't have tools to trigger your mind to get back to conscious thought and making a rational decision in a rough space, then that's how you can get messed up. And so it also goes to, that's why people may have a hard time with staying on fitness routines. It's not that they necessarily don't want to, but that's why I believe in building the whole person, because I have to see where you are mentally so that I can help you physically. That we can get the weight and stuff fall off, but if you don't think you can do it and I can't motivate you past what you think, then we're not going to be successful, right? And so that's why it's important that we sit down and we talk about what's going on with you and where you are and where you're trying to go, so that we can have realistic goals and set realistic goals and meet them. Okay, I'm getting off. I got a lot to say.
Okay. Did anybody else?
I do. As you were talking about the classes of people, our teens and our elderly, it just truly, I started writing notes. Everybody is doing online church or call-in church. And so I know my church is, and many churches across the United States. And so that is going back to joy, that is a source of strength and inspiration, hope for our elders, and not being able to see their pastor and not being able to see the people that they sit next to in their section. They've been sitting in that section for 30 years. They cannot sit with their section people, their section leaders. They can't go hug their first lady or hug their pastor. That causes so much anxiety, so much depression, because they can't, that's a daily routine that they've been doing forever and a day, and their routine is broken and they cannot get with it. And even helping our elders get connected to online church, whether it's streamed through Facebook or Zoom, or you have to call in to hear the message, or YouTube or whatever it is, having them trying to figure out how to use their cell phones. So they don't have flip phones no more. They got good phones now.
Yeah.
But trying to figure out how to get them to figure out how to stream online, that is stressful, and that is causing so much anxiety. And so one thing I can say is if you have those elders in your life that they still can't figure that out, as a church member, reach out to them, call them, connect with them, text them, just check on them to see how they're doing, because they may not have the capability to be able to join a church service, whether it's online or YouTube or call in. They might not have that wherewithal, and so make sure you make that connection just to check in with them, just to see how they're doing, because they're struggling as well during this time.
Mhm.
I honestly have a lot more faith in the older demographic, simply because they've lived through more than we have. I mean, we're talking about people who have lived through the Depression. We're talking about people who have lived through horrible Jim Crow laws, and just they've been through more than this current generation has. Living in the United States, we've pretty much babied this generation, this millennial generation. So I worry a little bit more about, let's just say I worry about everybody to an extent. One thing that I definitely, the message I want to push about across, because it seems scary, is that this too shall pass. Okay. Nothing is forever. Everything is temporary. The only thing that's constant is change. So
Mhm.
whether or not we'll be doing this for another month, we're used to having our way. I'm sorry, I'm getting alerts. We're used to being able to live in a microwave society where we can get anything, whatever we want, whenever we want it. And now we're having we have to sit back and wait and depend on others. And maybe, hopefully, we can grow from this.
Yes.
I was interested in, when we were talking about teenagers, one way that we definitely want to look and see if they are showing symptoms of true anxiety, true depression, or is it maybe just related to what's going on, like their senior activities and what have you. I really want to echo what Dr. Bellamy said, because I thought it was beautiful. Either way, it needs attention. Either way, it needs attention, and it deserves a conversation. Another thing I want, before we start jumping and talking about people having anxiety and depression, none of us can diagnose anybody during this particular chat. You know, we see our clients, we spend some time with them, and then we come up with a diagnosis. So the best that we can say is, if you're not a person who has a background in psychology, if you're not able to get them to someone, get them active in something, get them focusing on something else. We're talking about how hard it is. This is a really great time to be able to learn a different language or pick up another skill. I picked back up sewing. I haven't done that in a long time. So I think, pointing out the positives and things that we can accomplish during this time is really important. So the cases that we really focus on are the people who have ongoing mental health issues, and this on top of it can be pretty devastating. But I've seen a lot of beautiful things that have come out of this COVID-19 situation too. So we don't know what our new normal is going to be, but what we do know is that this isn't forever. This is going to change. We might in the future always have to wear masks and gloves. I have no idea. But right now, we can really focus on doing positive things to move forward. Maybe helping each other you get a boost of oxytocin when you do an act of charity or you do something beautiful for somebody else. So you can help balance out your chemicals. Not everybody who has been diagnosed with something needs to take medication. So again, I'm echoing a lot of what's been said. I have the same theoretical orientation as Dr. Bellamy, so I kind of really want to get back on some of the things that she was saying, because I see it's 4:23, and I know that our host wanted to be respectful of the time. So if we could go back to Dr. Bellamy, do you have any other tips that you can
Well, I
maybe?
think that you've done a
So,
beautiful
Tiff,
job. Yes.
just before you get to the wrap up part, one of the things that I wanted to add, and I was thinking about it a lot,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about it a lot, and it will be talked about more next week. But you were talking about the seniors, the senior citizens, and you were talking about the teenagers and high school students. And one of the things that, and I heard this somewhere, and it's so real. While we're practicing social distancing, be careful not to practice emotional distancing because they
Amen.
are isolated. You know, we are forced to be isolated physically, but we still need those connections with folks around us. And if it's a phone call, if it's a text message, if it's a video chat, making sure that we're encouraging folks to continue to be emotionally connected to those support systems that they have.
Mhm.
There you go.
That was so good.
That was perfect.
Yes.
And I say that is perfect because one of the things that I put on our outline to talk about and wrap up with is that, this is just a snapshot of help that we're giving through this Zoom and this discussion. But coping with COVID is not a one size fits all program. It is not. We've talked about so many different things. We've talked about fitness, we've talked about medication, we talked about thoughts, the way that we think, the way that we feel. And what we want you guys to leave with is that there are so many options and so many ways for us to be successful, as Carrie was saying. There are a lot of things we're inundated with the number of deaths and the numbers rising and how many tests we don't have and how many PPE, more that we need. And these things are extremely important. So I'm not saying that they're not important, but we do want to provide some type of balance or what I call harmony to the conversation. We can't balance it because it's just not going to be balanced, but we can create a beautiful tune by telling you guys some of the things that work. Carrier has given ideas. I love what Bernetta just said is that we do not have to be emotionally distant. And that's why when we call it social distance, I like to say, well, it's more like physical distance because we still can be social, you know, like we're doing now via Zoom and all that thing and those things. But even if we are discussing and going back to depression and anxiety and other mental challenges, there are new ways, well, not so new to everybody, but there are less traditional ways that have been introduced. We are doing televisits. I know many of us here are doing lots of therapy sessions or counseling sessions via video chat. Some people are doing it text chat. You can contact your doctor's office and do a call as well. We have given interventions of things you can do in the home. Next week, Renata is going to talk about a lot of things, and Joy gave great examples of just the building blocks of that fitness program. And she talked about, I know on a couple of weeks ago, she was talking about her offering some classes and some exercises, and we see all these things that have grown out of this challenging time. And so, just to wrap up, we want to leave you guys with information, but also hope. And Joy took it away, but I am a believer, and I believe that you cannot separate the faith from all of the things that we have talked about. So one of the treatments is prayer. Prayer can be added right into this. Meditation, your belief in God or a higher power that, they have an instrumental role. That power has an instrumental role in healing the land, getting decisions made quicker so that, we can go back into our new normal. And to just touch on those who came before us, meaning they don't have to be there, they can still be alive. They were resilient. There's a lot of things we can say they didn't have, but there's a whole lot that they did. And so we want to borrow some of that. I think I am done, but Joy is going to always wrap it up if y'all and the rest of the panel, but that's what I have to say about this, the psychology about it. Yes, I could talk a whole lot more. I choose not to because I think I hit my ceiling. But it's been great. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Does anyone else on the panel want to have a few words before I wrap it up? We did very well on time, I must say.
Nothing.
Okay.
I just thank Tiffany Bellamy for taking time out of her busy schedule to be with us.
Girl, you are so much.
I feel so blessed to be in the presence of my soror, who y'all might not have known, was amazing. So I haven't physically seen her in 35 years, but I just want to thank you, Michelle Bellamy. Bernetta for speaking finally. I know it was difficult for you, but I love you. Cherie, you just, girl, you get hugs and kisses. And Joy, outside of, I just wanted to make everybody smile because that's what I do. I even do that with my clients. I really enjoy this conversation. The bit of being transparent about some of the things that I deal with, and I thought Joy coming forward and being transparent about some of the things that you deal with was so brave and so beautiful. And I'm sure you can grab any of us to de-stress after this conversation, as you should. But and unfortunately I do have to run out, but this was a really great talk, and I love continuing. I just love the idea of, like, I'm a little shook up because I thought it was very important. People need to know some of the things that we do. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carria is good for the ego. I'll tell everybody that.
Yes, she is. Anyone else want to have any lasting words before we get out of here? Okay. Well, I'll just say, throw in my couple of 12 little cents. This is so amazing. I am so grateful that that I was obedient to this nugget that God dropped in my spirit, and He was very specific about the people whom He told me to ask to be a part of this. And so I am just so grateful that these ladies agreed to take out of their time, because I know each and every one of them are busy. They are practicing clinicians, and they have their own schedules that they have to work with. And so I am, again, appreciative of them being able to take out their time and lend us their expertise and strategies. It is a blessing to me, and I hope that it's a blessing to you guys. Some fitness tips that I want to leave with you guys for dealing with the psychological aspect, because another one of the physiological aspects that our body does is the muscles, they tense up. And so when they're tense, we become stiff, right? You can barely move. You be like, oh, Lord, what's happening now? The COVID, they got my muscles, got my bones. And really, it's just the anxiety has caused you to carry the tension in your body, releasing cortisol in your system. Cortisol is a stress hormone that can build up and cause you to gain weight and all other sorts of things. So, some of the things that we can do is we can try deep breathing. As Dr. Tiff mentioned, meditation. Deep breathing and meditation does a tremendous releasing and relaxing of the body and the mind. It does. Even if you are just sitting in a quiet space and taking a deep breath, as deep as you can hold, take it and hold it for 1 to 3 seconds and release it slowly. Even if you do that cycle 5 times, you will be amazed of how much your body relaxes and unlocks. The other thing that you can do is there's myofascial release, which when you are tense, you create knots in your muscles. Okay. And so with those knots in your muscles, you know, you need to release that tension out of your muscles so that you have the full length of your muscle to continue to function properly, to move properly, so that your muscles neurologically, there's a neurological piece to your muscles contracting and relaxing properly, so that you're innervating the right motor neurons in your muscles to move the right muscles. A lot of times we don't know and we don't realize that our body is compensating. We're not even activating the right muscle motor units to move certain parts of our bodies. We are compensating and we don't even know that. And you know, because it's because we have those adhesions or knots, as we know them in layman's terms, what they call the adhesions in our muscles, because we're tense, right? So this thing has a full psychological, physiological, biological effect on your body, which is why it is important that we stay healthy even the more, especially during this time. When you are doing the deep breathing or meditation, you can begin to visualize mentally the goals that you want to accomplish, and try not to list 20 things. Let's start with 2 or 3 things that you want to get accomplished that day, so that you will get into the habit of making and creating and finalizing those goals and reaching those goals that you're set, so that then as you get on create a track record or a habit of doing these things, you can add more tasks to your list and get them done as you get stronger in this way. And so when you're visualizing these tasks, then you can come out of the meditation, relaxation, and actualizing, making them happen. Two exercise classes that I like to take that I didn't believe in, but after taking, they made a believer out of me, is yoga and Pilates. If you want, I have two suggestions for that. Yoga for Athletes by Rodney Yee. It's in the Gaiam series, so you can find that. I like Mari Windsor's Pilates because she's a great instructor about getting you in your body in the proper position so that you know what you're supposed to feel. She does a great job of that. So those are the 2 that I recommend. Those are the 2 that I do when I do get a chance to do them, but it is very relaxing to your body. It creates a lot of elasticity and stretching in your muscles. It opens up the joints, the bone joints. So those are ways that you can relax. And I would implore you to do one of those once a week just to keep your body relaxed. So we thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same place, same time. Our featured speaker is going to be Bernetta Hines. And we are excited to hear what she has to say. You see, she's a little quiet wealth of knowledge over there. She just be like, I don't know to say, but she got a lot to say, a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise. So I ask you guys to join us next week, same back place, same back time, 3:30 Central Standard Time, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time here on the live. Like, share this live. Talk to us, send us text comments, because we want to know how you feel. We want to know if this is helping you. Reach out to these ladies because they are the bomb. They are dope. God chose some dope women, right? And I know them, right? Hey. So anyway, thank you again for joining us. We will see you guys on next week, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.